What if I told you that the most devastating moment in Marvel history wasn't a moment at all? What if the snap wasn't a temporary nightmare, but a permanent reality that reshaped the entire universe forever? Forget everything you know about hope, resurrection, and second chances. This is the timeline where half the universe stays dead, where the Avengers never assemble for a final battle, and where the word endgame becomes a cruel joke. This is the world where Thanos actually won. Welcome to the universe that never healed. Picture this. It's been exactly 24 hours since the snap. The Avengers compound is a ghost town. Tony Stark sits alone in his workshop, surrounded by the scattered remains of his greatest inventions, staring at a hologram that keeps glitching between showing Peter Parker's face and displaying "Signal Lost." There's no dramatic music, no inspiring speeches, just the sound of a genius slowly realizing that all his intelligence, all his technology, all his money means absolutely nothing. Across the world, something unprecedented is happening. For the first time in human history, every single person on Earth is experiencing the same trauma simultaneously. Therapists are gone, doctors are gone, teachers are gone. Steve Rogers finds himself in a Brooklyn apartment that doesn't exist anymore, trying to call a phone number that connects to dust. Thor sits in New Asgard, king of a people who are now scattered across the cosmos like sand in the wind. Natasha Romanoff stares at surveillance footage from around the world, watching civilization crumble in real time. But here's the twisted part. Nobody's looking for a way to fix it yet. They're still processing the sheer impossibility of what just happened. The human brain isn't designed to comprehend loss on this scale. We are just getting started. If you're liking this already, give us a subscribe. Now back to the video. By month 1, the world has descended into something that makes every apocalypse movie look like a children's cartoon. Nuclear power plants are melting down because half the technicians are gone. Planes are falling from the sky because half the air traffic controllers vanished mid-sentence. Hospitals are overflowing with patients while half the medical staff are dust in the wind. But here's where it gets really dark. The Avengers are too busy playing firefighters to even think about playing heroes. Tony Stark isn't building suits, he's building water purification systems. Steve Rogers isn't giving inspiring speeches, he's coordinating refugee camps. Thor isn't wielding Mjolnir, he's using his godlike strength to move debris from collapsed buildings. They've gone from Earth's mightiest heroes to Earth's most desperate janitors. And the worst part? They're failing. For every life they save, 10 more are lost to the chaos. For every problem they solve, 20 new ones emerge. The world is bleeding out, and they're trying to stop it with band-aids. Fast forward to year 1, and something fascinating starts happening. The chaos begins to stabilize, but not in the way anyone expected. See, when you remove half of everything, you don't just remove half the people. You remove half the problems, half the traffic, half the pollution, half the crime, half the poverty. The world becomes a very different place when resources that were once scarce suddenly become abundant. Ghost towns spring up everywhere, but the cities that remain become almost utopian. With half the population gone, housing becomes free. With half the cars gone, traffic disappears. With half the factories gone, the air becomes cleaner than it's been in decades. Tony Stark makes a discovery that haunts him. Earth's carbon emissions have dropped by 60%. The ozone layer is healing. Endangered species are making comebacks. The planet is thriving. He sits in his workshop, staring at environmental data that shows a world healing itself, and whispers the words that will haunt him for the rest of his life. Maybe the mad Titan was right. 3 years in, and society has rebuilt itself around an entirely new economic principle: the guilt economy. Every decision is now measured against the weight of those who were lost. Companies don't just compete for profit, they compete for moral justification. The Avengers have become something unprecedented: living martyrs. They're worshipped not for their victories, but for their failures. Statues are built not to celebrate their heroism, but to commemorate their inability to save everyone. Steve Rogers finds himself giving speeches to packed stadiums, but he's not talking about hope or justice. He's talking about survivors' guilt and the responsibility of the living to honor the dead.
We are not the lucky ones. We are the burdened ones. We carry the weight of a universe that trusted us to protect it.
He tells crowds of millions. The applause is thunderous. but it sounds like morning. 5 years later, something completely unexpected happens. The first generation of post-snap children reaches kindergarten age. These kids have never known a world where resources were scarce. They've never experienced traffic jams or pollution or overcrowding. To them, empty houses aren't symbols of loss, they're playgrounds. Abundant food isn't a luxury, it's just life. Peter Parker, now in his 20s and working as a teacher, notices something deeply unsettling. When he tells his students about the before times, the crowded cities, the noise, the chaos, they don't understand. In their eyes, fewer people means a better world. And no, Peter Parker didn't die in the snap. In a freak anomaly of the snap's randomness, he was one of the few who returned just minutes later, revived by some unknown ripple in space-time. He lives with that miracle every day, never knowing why he was spared when so many weren't.
Mr. Parker, why would you want more people if it makes everything worse?
One day, a 5-year-old raises their hand. Peter freezes. He doesn't have an answer. Because how do you explain to a child that the paradise they live in was built on the graves of billions? 7 years after the snap, something nobody saw coming begins happening. People start worshipping Thanos, not as a villain, as a prophet. The Church of Cosmic Balance emerges in major cities, preaching that Thanos wasn't a mad titan. He was a misunderstood visionary who saved the universe from itself. Tony Stark finds himself in the strange position of having to argue against evidence that supports Thanos' point. The data is undeniable. The universe is better off with half the population gone. But every time he looks at that data, he sees Peter Parker's face. Every time he celebrates an environmental victory, he hears Pepper's voice. Every time he sees a child playing in an empty park, he remembers Morgan's laughter. A decade after the snap, a radical movement emerges. The reverse snappers. These aren't heroes trying to undo the snap. These are people who want to finish what Thanos started. They argue that if half the universe dying made everything better, then maybe the other half should die too. The logic is terrifying in its simplicity. If overpopulation creates problems, then eliminate overpopulation by eliminating population. The movement starts small, a few radical philosophers and depressed survivors, but it grows, fast, because they have something that most movements don't have. The Avengers find themselves in the bizarre position of having to protect the world from people who want to save it by ending it. 15 years after the snap, the universe gets its first communication from the Celestials, the ancient beings who created the Eternals and have been watching cosmic events unfold for millennia. Their message is simple and terrifying. The experiment has concluded. Results: acceptable. The snap wasn't random. It wasn't the mad plan of a deluded titan. It was a test. A cosmic experiment designed to see if civilizations could survive and thrive with reduced populations. Earth passed the test. So did dozens of other worlds. But thousands of civilizations failed. They collapsed completely when their populations were halved, proving they were unsustainable to begin with. The Celestials reveal that they've been conducting this experiment across the universe for millions of years. Species that adapt survive. Species that don't get wiped out completely. Humanity survived. But the price of survival was learning to live with the knowledge that they were never really in control of their own fate. 20 years after the snap, the first major conflict of the post-snap world breaks out. The Generation War. On one side are the survivors, those who lived through the snap and remember the before times. They carry the trauma, the guilt, the knowledge of what was lost. On the other side are the natives, those born after the snap who see the current world as normal and good. They don't understand why the survivors are so obsessed with the past. The conflict starts philosophical but becomes political. The survivors want to maintain low populations. The natives want to have large families. The war isn't fought with weapons. It's fought with votes, with protests, with competing visions of what the future should look like. Tony Stark, now in his 60s, finds himself caught in the middle. He understands the survivors' guilt, but he also sees the natives' point. Maybe the past wasn't better. Maybe mourning forever isn't healthy. Maybe moving on isn't betrayal. It's survival. 25 years after the snap, a new generation of heroes emerges. But they're not called the Avengers. They're called the Gardeners. These heroes don't fight villains. They fight problems. Climate change, mental health crises, social inequality. They have degrees in social work and environmental science. Morgan Stark, now 30, leads a team that's developed technology to restore damaged ecosystems in months instead of decades. She's not trying to save the world, she's trying to improve it. Peter Parker, now in his 40s, runs a global education network that connects children from different planets. He's not teaching them to be heroes, he's teaching them to be citizens. The old Avengers watch this new generation with a mixture of pride and confusion. These young people are accomplishing things the original team never even dreamed of, but they're doing it without the drama, without the sacrifice, without the glory. 30 years after the snap, the universe faces its greatest philosophical crisis, the question of restoration. Technology has advanced to the point where the snap could potentially be reversed. Not through time travel, but through reality manipulation on a cosmic scale. The question isn't whether it's possible, it's whether it should be done. The debate divides not just Earth, but the entire galaxy. Some argue that restoration is a moral imperative, that the dead deserve to live again. Others argue that restoration would be a catastrophe, that the current universe is too precious to risk losing. The arguments are compelling on both sides. Restoration would bring back billions of beloved family members, friends, and heroes, but it would also bring back overpopulation, resource scarcity, environmental destruction, and social chaos. In the end, the universe chooses to stay small, not because the snap was right, but because the world that emerged from it was too beautiful to risk destroying. 35 years after the snap, something remarkable happens. The universe finally stops mourning. Not because the pain goes away, but because the pain becomes productive. Memorial Day, the anniversary of the snap, changes from a day of mourning to a day of appreciation. People don't just remember who they lost, they celebrate what they learned. The universe has become something unprecedented, a civilization that chose wisdom over growth, sustainability over abundance. The Avengers, now elderly or dead, are remembered not as heroes who failed, but as teachers who showed the universe how to rebuild itself from ashes. Tony Stark, on his deathbed, makes a final recording.
Maybe the Mad Titan was right. We always thought our job was to save the world. Turns out our job was to learn from losing it.
40 years after the snap, the universe has become something beautiful and terrible. Beautiful because it's sustainable, cooperative, and wise in ways the old universe never was. Terrible because it's built on the graves of half of all life. Children learn about the snap not as a tragedy, but as a transformation. They learn that sometimes the worst thing that can happen is also the beginning of the best thing that can happen. 45 years after the snap, Doctor Strange makes a discovery that changes everything. The multiverse is watching. In his astral form, he encounters the Watcher, that cosmic being who observes all realities across infinite dimensions. What the Watcher reveals is staggering. Out of 14 million possible timelines, only 847 resulted in universes that survived the permanent snap and became better for it.
Your reality is among the rarest. Most universes that experience permanent population reduction either collapse entirely or become dystopian nightmares. You achieved something nearly impossible. You became wise.
The Watcher explains. But here's the twist that nobody saw coming. Those other 846 successful timelines, they're all trying to make contact with Earth. Suddenly, the universe isn't just dealing with its own post-snap reality. It's becoming the center of an interdimensional network of snap survivor civilizations. Each reality has learned different lessons from the same trauma. In Universe 447, the survivors developed telepathic abilities from shared grief. In Universe 892, they learned to commune with their dead through quantum consciousness. In Universe 1205, they discovered how to split their essence across multiple dimensions, effectively becoming immortal. Earth's reality becomes a cosmic classroom where different versions of post-snap wisdom are shared and studied. 50 years after the snap, something unprecedented happens. Thanos returns. Not through resurrection or time travel, but through something far more complex. The collective consciousness of the universe, having learned to appreciate the wisdom that came from the snap, begins to dream of its architect. These dreams become so powerful, so focused, that they actually manifest a new version of Thanos. Not the mad titan who committed genocide, but a being of pure regret and understanding. This dream. Thanos appears to the aging Avengers with a message that shatters everything they thought they knew about their enemy.
I never wanted to be right. I wanted to be wrong. I wanted you to prove me wrong.
His voice carrying the weight of cosmic sorrow. The revelation hits like a second snap. Thanos had hoped the Avengers would stop him not just once, but permanently. He had hoped they would find a way to create a sustainable universe without the need for his brutal solution. When they failed to prevent the snap, when they failed to reverse it, when they instead learned to live with it, They had actually fulfilled his deepest, most secret wish. They had proven that his methods were wrong, but his concerns were valid. 55 years after the snap, the universe faces its ultimate test: perfect harmony. Crime has virtually disappeared. Wars are extinct. Poverty is eliminated. Environmental destruction is reversed. Mental health is prioritized. Education is universal. The post-snap universe has achieved everything that philosophers and dreamers had imagined for millennia. The gardeners, the heroes of the new age, realize they face their greatest challenge yet. How do you teach wisdom to people who have never needed it? The answer comes from an unexpected source: the children of the snap survivors. These individuals, now in their 50s and 60s, remember the stories of loss and rebuilding. They become the new teachers, the keepers of hard-won wisdom.
Paradise isn't a place you reach, it's a place you maintain. And maintenance requires remembering why you built it in the first place.
Morgan Stark tells a gathering of young people who have never known struggle. The final lesson of the permanent snap universe is perhaps the most profound. Wisdom is not a destination, but a journey. Each generation must learn anew why cooperation is better than competition, why sustainability is better than abundance, why appreciation is better than accumulation. The snap survivors become the universe's first professional rememberers, people whose job is to ensure that the lessons of loss are never forgotten by those who never experienced the loss. They build museums of memory that preserve not just the history of the snap, but the emotions that came with it. The universe would survive, but it would be forever changed. Smaller populations would mean more sustainable living. Shared trauma would mean greater empathy. The knowledge that everything could be lost would mean greater appreciation for what remains. Heroes would become teachers. Villains would become philosophers. Ordinary people would become extraordinary stewards of a precious, fragile, beautiful world. The universe would learn that sometimes the best way to save something is to let it break first. And in breaking, in losing, in accepting the unacceptable, the universe would discover something it never knew it was capable of: wisdom. But more than that, it would discover that wisdom without vigilance is temporary. The permanent snap scenario isn't a story about heroes and villains. It's a story about evolution, about a universe that learned to be better by being forced to be smaller. It's a story that asks the hardest question of all: what if the worst thing that ever happened was also the best thing that ever happened? The universe that survived the permanent snap found its answer by building something so beautiful that the tragedy became worth it. Not because the snap was right, but because the survivors made it right. What do you think? Could a smaller universe be a wiser universe? Could tragedy become triumph? Could the end of everything become the beginning of something better? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more impossible questions about the worlds that might have been. Please subscribe for more what-if theories, as we are just getting started.